Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We're not quite ready for hand size season yet. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio. Laquan Jones, at this moment, is still on an airplane. He is on his way to New Orleans. He's going to be there for an HBCU showcase, the HBCU Legacy Bowl coming up this weekend. So he will be enjoying lots of good food and lots of fun in New Orleans, while Florio, you and I are just grinding here, doing mock drafts and stuff.
Yeah, look, let's give LQ credit. He was like, I land, I want to run to the hotel. Like, can I it wouldn't work out schedule wise, but he wanted to be here right now.
That is true. That is true. All credit to Laquan, because he was going to try and hustle up and set up from the hotel and do the show. It's just timing wise with the rest of us, it was going to be difficult. We expect, though, he will be back for Thursday's show so we can ask him questions about some of his mock draft stuff. Then the one headline as we get to, by the way, we are doing a show. We did a mock draft yesterday. We're going to talk about the mock draft. We got some other running back rankings things, and then maybe some fun and frivolity at the end, depending on how long we are babbling about the other stuff here. But yeah, we did a mock draft. The first of several this year, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like doing them. Like we were talking about doing them maybe like once a month or something like that, just to kind of compare. Where, and it's really cool because like you posted this on Blue, you skeeted it, I guess.
Yeah, I Patrick Claybon has convinced me that we're just calling them tweets regardless.
Okay, so you tweeted it on Blue Sky,
right?
And it filled within like 20 minutes. So it's a lot of people who live and breathe fantasy like we do, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually got some really cool folks in here. Nate Polvote joined us. Kevin Tompkins, I think you can read him some of his stuff over at Fantasy Pros. Nate Jonke from Pro Football Focus was in with us. Pete Davidson, you can find him at Rotobond. There's a whole lot of folks who jumped in. So we are grateful for them for filling this thing up. And I think we just had some civilians out there as well who just said jump in.
Do you think Pete gets it as much as I do, like tweets thinking he's someone else?
Yeah, except that his are probably more fun than yours.
Oh, easily.
You know, I mean, he probably got a lot of tweets about the SNL 50th anniversary or something like that. Yours, you just get angry people.
Whenever like a supermodel or like a singer breaks up with their significant other, they probably slide into Pete's DMs. Like,
yeah, I mean, I would think so, right? So yeah, it's probably a different level for sure than what you get when when people make you mad or or you make whatever when the other Florio tweets things, writes things, and people get upset about it. So I want to go through this mock draft. It was a 12-team PPR snake draft. I will also try to post the actual board so folks can check that out too, because I know just sort of listening to this thing is going to be a little bit difficult to follow. So we'll post the board. You can take a look at that. You can make your own determinations of who you thought had a good draft or not a good draft. So I mean, like your overall impressions, your feelings on the team that you came away with. You chose the 12th spot in the order. So talk to me about why you chose that and how you felt like it turned out.
I took 12 because it's a little bit easier because you could just double pick and then you're good to go. I also like being on the turn. It makes you, at least with me, it forces me to kind of get my guys a little bit more. Whereas if I'm in the middle of a draft, I'll be like, maybe I could wait and get this guy around later. You don't have that option when you're at 12. So it kind of forces you to go get the guys that you like. And to me, the most interesting part of this mock was rookies. And obviously, ADP isn't fully up to like par yet. So the rookies are still a little bit pushed down on ADP, but you wouldn't know that by looking at this board because everyone was pulling rookies up very high. I kind of went in being like, I'm going to draft a lot of rookies. I don't think I drafted a single one because I should have expected this with who we were drafting with, but It was such a sharp room that they went appropriate. There was no discount on any of the top rookies.
No, there was not. And like, I was sort of with you. I was like, I'm going to draft some rookies. And they kept going and they kept going. Eventually, I did draft one late. I chose the second spot. You know, I wanted to see who would go first and sort of make my decision accordingly. I'm just curious as to how things were going to shake out. And I was with you. I was trying to get rookies. It never really happened. Then finally late, I felt left out. So I drafted a rookie in the late rounds of this thing just to kind of see how it would feel a little bit. Did you have a particular strategy? Were you I always feel like you never really know until you kind of get into it a round or two, but did you go into it, planning to do certain things?
I kind of felt like you, like, especially with this being my first real mock for 2025 and it being February. And like I said, ADP is still kind of skewed off of what it was last year. These early drafts are always very interesting. And I kind of went in it like, I'm going to find all the guys whose ADP are suppressed and I'm going to take them. And then again, we're in such a sharp room that everyone had that same thought. My plan was I wanted to leave the first couple of rounds with running backs because at least one, like I know me and like Laquan talk about it a lot. Like we want wide receivers early on, but the more we were talking, especially Marcus, when we did our rankings last week and we talked about running back, I was like, there's such I think there's a bigger fall off at running back after the top 5 than at any other position outside of maybe quarterback, but that's a very different position. So I left the first 2 rounds. I made sure to grab Devon Achane, who was my highest ranked running back. And then through 4 rounds, I ended up doubling down and taking Isaiah Pacheco, who I loved last year as well. So after 4 rounds, I had 2 running backs, and that was something I wanted to emphasize. Like, I was confident I could find receivers I would feel good about in the middle portions of the draft, not so much with running backs, which is why after I had those 2 guys, I took one more running back until my last pick, the very last pick of the draft. So wanted to emphasize it early and then kind of, because I also feel like right now, Marcus, obviously things will change by August, but out of all the positions, running backs are the one that could change the most because it's so volume dependent.
Yeah, I felt in some ways maybe a little bit opposite of you in the sense that I didn't love the receivers that were available when it got to even like late round 2. I mean, they're good players, but I didn't feel comfortable taking them in that spot. So I felt good getting, a big wide receiver early. I came back and got a big running back early. We'll start talking about some of these guys individually in a bit. But it was sort of like after a while, I'm like, I don't love any of the receivers available. They all come with big question marks attached to them. And then sort of in the mid rounds, I hit a few receivers that I think could potentially either make a leap or maybe have a bounce back year. Then later, I kind of took some, I guess, for lack of a better description, kind of more 0 RB type guys or guys that have upside potentially. And then, the end of the draft is always sort of those upside kind of dart throw guys that you think could really maybe turn into something, but you're sort of, on the fence about them a little bit. So let's sort of dive into it. Justin Jefferson is the 1.01. Your feelings on that?
I wouldn't do it. I can get the thinking, like, he's Justin Jefferson. He probably is the best real life wide receiver walking the planet right now. He's been so productive regardless of who the quarterback has been. Last year, we were doing this with Sam Darnold where we were like, might not live up to expectations, and he was fine. He produced with Nick Mullins for a stretch the year before. But when you were picking first, you were splitting hairs. And Justin Jefferson's quarterback is a much bigger question than the guy that you got at 2 in Jamar Chase, who has Joe Burrow, one of the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL, his guy since college, all of that. So I know we've talked about it already on the show before. For me, 1.01 is Jamar Chase, and you just keep it moving. But you got a gift. You got him at 2. I get the thinking with Jefferson. I just would never be the one to do that.
Which made me feel great that I was able to, because I see Jefferson go off the board at 1, and I couldn't click Jamar Chase's name fast enough. Like, I was all in on Jamar Chase at the 1.2. That was an easy one for me. I assumed he was going to go 1. I still believe in most drafts that he's going to go number 1, but I was glad to get the very slight discount at 2.
If he went 1, would you have taken Jefferson at 2?
Probably, yeah. So Jefferson was coming off the board in the first 2 picks. I was probably going to go Jefferson there, but it got us number 3 with Bijan Robinson. Kevin Tompkins takes Bijan Robinson at the number 3 overall spot. Maybe the big headline, though, in the first round, and we're going to have to ask him about this on Thursday. Laquan was at the number 4 spot. He has been talking up Puka Nacua all offseason, and he had a chance to take Puka, and he takes Amon-Ra St. Brown instead.
Which literally last week we did our rankings. Both me and Laquan had Puka as wide receiver 2.
And he takes Amon-Ra instead. So again, he is en route to New Orleans. When we talk to him on Thursday, this is going to be the first question we ask. Is probably the second question, because I'll probably ask him what's the best thing he ate. But the second question will be like, why did you take Amon-Ra over Puka at the number 4 spot?
He did text us where he was like, I want to see where he goes. But I was sitting there at 12 like, yo, if he got by Laquan, there's an actual chance he makes it to me now. He went 9th overall, but yeah, I think that's a great value for Puka right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Amon-Ra goes 4, Saquon Barkley goes 5, CeeDee Lamb at 6, Jahmyr Gibbs is 7, A.J. Brown at 8. Now, A.J. Brown is one that I'm not sure about. I mean, it's not a talent issue. It's just that last year the passing volume was diminished significantly in Philadelphia, and it feels like that is a risk at 8 for me.
I am an AJ Brown stan. I love him, and I don't know if I was the highest of the 3 of us when we ranked him, but even so, I had the 3 wide receivers that went after him ahead of AJ Brown. So I like him a lot more. Like if he was there for me at 12 rather than the guy I took, which was Nico Collins, I probably like if you flip those 2, I'd probably still take AJ at 12, but I like him a lot more as like a late first, early second round pick than I do middle of the first.
So there he goes. He goes at 1.8. You mentioned Puka is at 9. Malik Neighbors goes number 10 overall. Breece Hall at 11. And then you finished out round 1 with Nico Collins. 4 running backs in the first round. Is that a surprise to you?
A bit. Not the first 3, because I think Bijan, Saquon, and Gibbs are going to firmly be like first, even like probably middle first round picks or earlier. I was not only to see a 4th one go, but who the 4th one was in Breece Hall. Like I think Breece Hall is more of a second round pick in drafts next year than a first. Breece Hall is one that's curious to me because I think he's a borderline first round guy. Again, it's based on ability and it's based on a belief that whatever happens with the Jets, whoever their quarterback is going to be, however this offense is going to be set up, that they are going to feature one of the more talented backs in the league. And I that is sort of my argument for him in the first round. My argument for him out of the first round is it's the Jets, it's chaos. You just don't really know what's going to happen because there's so many unanswered questions in this offense. Again, I get it. It's mid-February, but there's just so many unanswered questions that it's hard to plant a flag. Like you want your first round pick to be a guy that you know with certainty is going to produce. And there's just a lot of questions around Breece Hall at this point. Into the second, a little bit more running back heavy. We had 6 running backs off the board. You started it with Devon Achane. You mentioned he was your, he's not your highest ranked overall, right? He was just the highest ranked running back still available. Yeah. I have him as my, so the top 3, and then I have Achane after that. Okay.
So you take Achane to start the round. We did get our first rookie in the second round, Ashton Genty. Nate Yonke takes him from at the 2.8 spot. So we actually started, Nate starts with Saquon Barkley and Ashton Genty, which, again, in February, I'm not going to lie to you, that looks pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I feel like this is probably like the lowest portion of it. Like, I don't see Genty falling much further than this unless he goes to like an awful landing spot. But I think there's only room for growth because we were talking about it last week. Like, if he goes to a team where they just hand him the keys in year one and let him run wild, he is going to be, in my opinion, a late first or early second round pick. Us fantasy guys love rookies. So not only is this a pick that makes you look smart now, a month from now, we might be like, wow, that was a great value.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Depending on where he goes, it's not inconceivable that he slides into the first round. I mean, I've seen mock drafts with Jonty getting drafted fairly early in the first round. I mean, I've seen mocks with the Raiders taking him at 6. You know, I don't know if that really happens, but that's where we are sort of in mock draft season, like real NFL draft mock season at this point. There was a run on wide receivers early in the second round. Brian Thomas Jr., followed by Drake London, followed by Marvin Harrison.
That one stood out to me.
I was going to say, how are we feeling about Marvin Harrison? Because year one was a major disappointment.
Yeah, it was a disappointment because of the expectations that we put on him. And if this is where he's going to go in drafts, we're not lowering those expectations at all. I don't like him going there. Like, I would have took Tyreek over him. I would have took Garrett Wilson over him. This might sound crazy. We're getting into round 3 here, but like, I would take Ladd McConkey over him, JSN. So at least as of now, things could change. Again, we're still in early February or mid-February, but as of right now, that to me is my least favorite pick in the second round. I was going to say, though, last week, Laquan was like, I'm the low guy on Kyren Williams. He took him in the second round.
He passed on Puka. He takes Kyren. I don't know if he was hacked or what was going on with Laquan.
He took Cooper Kupp later on. Like, there's a lot of Rams going on with this draft of his.
There's a whole lot happening with Laquan's team. Yeah, I am sad he's not here because he has some things he has to answer for sure. Christian McCaffrey at 2.6. I don't hate it. I think I'm hesitant to draft McCaffrey at all this year.
I get it. If you're going to take him, I think the second round is where you have to. And there's obvious, like, he could be the RB1 again. Like, there's obvious upside there. But yeah, I also feel like he's riskier now than, because in past years when he missed time, I was always like, it's fine, like, draft him. Like, especially that one year where it was like a shoulder injury and a hamstring injury. I'm like, those two things aren't connected at all. It was just bad luck. But he's older now. There's more wear and tear on the tires. And the Achilles thing, that I hear Achilles and I immediately am like, I don't want to touch that at all. And you, as a 49ers fan, know how his health, how big of a story it was and how hard it was to trust him last year. So if you're out on him, that only makes me want to be even more so out on him.
Well, it was hard to trust McCaffrey. It's even harder to trust the 49er organization when it comes to information about, their injury. And I get it. Like, it's not advantageous to just blab to the world like what a guy's situation is. But the fact that the organization kind of kept stringing this along during the season, only to basically, we didn't get much, right? It was forever before he got on the field. And it didn't last very long before he aggravated the injury, and we just didn't see him again for the rest of the year. So I have a little bit of nervousness. Maybe if he falls a little farther, we can talk about it. First tight end off the board, Brock Bowers at the 210 spots. You feel okay with that?
Yeah. I didn't even have to, when I saw the next tight end go off the board, I didn't even need to look at who it was that selected him.
That's right, because Bowers goes 210. I come around at the second pick of the third round, and I took Trey McBride. I don't want to be the person streaming tight ends. I can't. I've planted my flag that McBride's going to finish the year as the tight end 1. So this was sort of me reaffirming that belief by making him the second tight end off the board, taking him with the second pick in the third round. First quarterback off the board happens in the third round. I know you're okay with Josh Allen being the first quarterback off the board. Are you okay with him at 3.7?
I'm okay with him there, but I'm never going to be the person doing it because, like, I love Allen. That's my guy. But like, what's the difference between him and Lamar? Like, A lot of people are going to have Lamar as QB1 coming into next year. And Lamar went, what was it?
Like 9 spots later.
9 spots later. And then you get Jaden Daniels over a round later. You, I thought, came away with the best quarterback value, Marcus, because you got Jalen Hurts in the 5th round. Mm-hmm. And I keep saying I think there's like a clear-cut top 5, but I want the 5th one. And it does appear that Hurts is going to be the 5th one off the board. And you get him over 2 rounds after Josh Allen and over a round later than, or close to a round later than like Lamar and those other guys. I think that's just a great value.
Yeah, I felt good about it again because it was right at the cutoff where, look, if I didn't get Hurts, then I was definitely going to wait on a quarterback. But the fact that he was still there, 2nd pick of the 5th round, I said, okay, I can pull the trigger on this and I can feel okay and I can continue sort of roster building. So by the 5th round, I got 2 wide receivers. I had Jamar Chase in the 1st. I took Brandon Ayuk in the 4th at the end of the 4th round just because I feel like he's going to rebound. And especially if the Niners, if they do trade Deebo Samuel, a healthy Brandon Ayuk still gets plenty of targets there in that offense. So I got my 2 receivers. I took Josh Jacobs in the 2nd. I took Trey McBride in the 3rd. And I got Jalen Hurts in the 5th. So I feel really good about those first 5 picks.
I almost took Brandon Ayuk in my 4th round pick. And then you got him at the end of the 4th. So full round between us.
And that's where, but it's right about that spot where I felt a little bit, about the receivers that were out there. Like I took Ayuk at 4-11. The pick right before him was Xavier Worthy. Earlier in that round, DK Metcalf went. But some of the receivers that went right after Ayuk, Chris Olave goes early 5th. Jameson Williams, early 5th. A rookie, Ted McMillan out of the University of Arizona, was early in the 5th round. Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice. Good players, just I didn't feel comfortable with them in that spot.
I felt the same. And I'm the one that took Rashee Rice. And the reason I did, because all those other names you said were gone by it came to me. But I also felt like you, like I don't love any of these guys. So I'm going to go for the one that I think has the most upside. And that to me was Rashee Rice. But at that point, but I also agree with you 100% with what you said. Like Ayuk is going to be or should be the number 1 wide receiver top target in this 49ers offense this year. And we already saw what, like last year he was going 2 rounds earlier than this. So you're getting a discount already and he could be even better.
Yeah. And on top of it with Ayuk, the injury happened relatively early in the season. He played 7 games. So it was kind of in the earlier part of the season. So it's given him a little longer runway to get healthy, to rehab a little bit. And hopefully now that he's got a contract, we see him at training camp. We see him actually working out with the team. Yeah. So he's ready to go for week 1. So that gives me a little bit more confidence about it. Kind of diving in back to the 6th round here. At this point, it just sort of seemed like, I don't know if there was a real flow to the draft from this point on. And I get the sense like that has a lot to do with, because it's so early and ADPs haven't settled and we haven't gone through free agency yet, that people haven't really figured out where a lot of guys should be slotted right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people spend like, and it's what we have kind of been focusing on is like the early portion of the draft, because the high end guys we kind of know, some of them still could change via free agency or quarterback or whatever. But for the most part, these are guys that are kind of, they're so good that they're locked into their team and their role. But when you get into the middle and later portions of the draft, a lot of that comes down to like volume, opportunities, stuff like that. And we don't have any of those answers yet. You also did see older players fall. Probably, like I was shocked. I'm not taking Devontae Adams most likely, but middle of the 7th round, like to me, that felt like okay, he probably fell further than he should have.
Probably, but I think everybody sort of had the same feeling, right? Because I looked at Devontae Adams' name and it sat at the top of the list for a long time. And I was like, I can't do it. I don't know where he's going to be. I don't know what his situation is. Yeah, he's still one of the better receivers in the NFL, but he is getting older. I think it's just, there were so many question marks that I think a lot of people just sort of passed on, to the point where, as you mentioned, Then suddenly you're in the middle of the 7th round, and it's like, well, what are we doing here? And then he ends up getting drafted. So, yeah, it just felt like there was a weird flow to this draft. I don't know about you. I got to the 8th round. I took Stephon Diggs at the end of the 8th round. I just looked at the list and I'm like, I don't love any of the options out there anymore. Like, it just seemed to all fall apart by like late 7th, early 8th round for me.
I think you did a good job there of like Diggs is a safer option. He doesn't bring like the top 5 upside that he used to bring, but he's still very, very safe. But then you paired him with Hollywood Brown, who brings absolutely no floor, but a lot of upside as the potential big play threat for the Chiefs. So that's something when I'm in the later rounds of drafts that I will do sometimes. I'll be like, all right, I'm going to get this guy who, if I'm in a pinch or whatever, or if I still am filling out my roster, I don't mind, like my starting lineup, I don't mind starting this guy. But I'm going to pair him with someone that if he hits, I'm pulling Diggs out of my lineup for this guy because the upside is so high. So I that's the strategy that I love to do, especially that portion of the draft.
Well, yeah, and that's sort of what I went 3 wide receivers in a row, 7, 8, and 9. I took Rome Odunze in the 7th, Stephon Diggs in the 8th, and Hollywood Brown in the 9th. So at that point, I felt like I was pretty good at wide receiver. I kind of want to get back to your draft, though, because like 6, 7, 8, you took TJ Hawkinson, which I know you said you were kind of going to wait on a tight end. Is this about where you plan to make the move when you can?
So I think what I'm kind of figuring out is I'm probably like 5, 6 if I could get one of like Kittle, Andrews, Hawkinson. I think I'll pull that on, like pull the trigger on that. But if I miss out on those guys, then I'm saying whatever, and I'll be one of these teams that took their tight end in like the 10th round or so. But I don't know. I felt like at 6, just like you were saying, like I already had 3 wide receivers at that point. I didn't love any of the others. Like George Pickens, I was considering. I definitely did not like any of the running backs that were there, not enough to take as my 3rd. So I was like, and quarterback, my plan was to wait. So I was like, all right, I'll take the tight end here that I know me and you are in on TJ Hawkinson. Laquan is not, but yeah. I feel like a healthy TJ Hawkinson could get me 900 yards and like 6, 7 touchdowns and be a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think, last year, obviously, he was coming back from a major injury. We didn't see him until late in the season. It took him a while to sort of get up to speed, but I'm with you. I think a healthy TJ Hawkinson is still a very productive player.
Do you think I made a mistake taking him over Andrews? Because I went, once I saw Mark Andrews go right after me, I was like, did I go wrong?
I don't think so. I like Mark Andrews, but you do start to wonder if the decline is happening a little bit.
That was my concern.
That just whether or not he's starting to decline a little, partially just because of him, partially because it seems like the Ravens want to incorporate wide receivers more. What we saw out of Zay Flowers, I don't know what Rashad Bateman is going to be at this point, but it does seem like they want to start incorporating other pass catchers. Isaiah Likely had a huge game in week 1.
He might be the best tight end 2 in football. Like, I think on most teams, Likely's a starter.
Probably. He probably is, for sure. So no, I don't think you went wrong by taking Hawkinson over Andrews at all.
That was the one pick that when I made it, I was like, you ever had, I'm sure you have it happen all the time, but like when you make a pick and then you immediately start second guessing, like, did I leave the better player on the board? Like
usually it's the oh crap, I forgot that dude was there. Yes. What am I doing? Sort of thing. So no, I understand it, but I think you were fine at that one. Just sort of scanning the rest of this year. Any thought, so you get Kyler Murray over Jordan Love. Thoughts on that? Baker Mayfield comes off the board fairly late in the 9th round. I mean, after Love, after Knicks. That surprised me, I think, a little bit.
I'm cool with Murray going ahead of Love because he can run. But look, I was the Patrick Mahomes guy when we did our rankings last week. I was the only one that had him in the top 6, but I think after the top 5 quarterbacks, there should be a multiple round gap between because like to me, the top 5 guys are the clear cut 5 best fantasy quarterbacks in the game. So like to me, taking Mahomes 4 picks after you took Jalen Hurts felt like throwing all the value away, right? Being like, I don't want to miss out on a quarterback. I'm chasing it. And even getting like Kyler Murray in the 6th round, like I don't think that's a big enough gap for me to want to take a quarterback there. There were a lot of quarterbacks that went, like Bo Nix went in round 8, Baker in 9. I didn't take my quarterbacks till round 11 and 12, and I took Caleb and Drake May, but like Herbert and Goff went later than that, Purdy, Dak. So to me, I understand firmly taking a top 5 quarterback. But if you miss out on those top 5, I think you should immediately pivot to like, all right, I'm going to wait a few rounds now, because as much as I love like Mahomes as my QB6, if I'm not getting any sort of discount and I'm paying a similar price to the top 5, now I need him to be as good as those guys. And I don't feel comfortable that he will be. So yeah, that Mahomes is probably my least favorite pick in this draft, but all of the quarterbacks that win right after the top 5, I feel like I'd rather just wait a couple rounds and get someone that's pretty similar.
So Kyler goes with the last pick in the 6th round. We go over a round until the next quarterback, which is Jordan Love at 8.2. Bo Nix later that round at 8.9. Baker Mayfield at 9.3. Then after Baker, we go almost a full round. CJ Stroud goes at in the 10th round. I mean, I guess I don't hate it because the person who took Stroud also took Josh Allen. So I guess this is where we are, where CJ Stroud is a QB2 now, huh?
He's a QB2, but if I have Josh Allen, like at that point where CJ Stroud was there was still so many good quarterbacks that I would have just waited. But I do think it's something that we spoke about last week, but like quarterback, I don't want to say it's deeper than ever because we say that every year, but there's a lot of good options that I feel good about that you don't need to take as like a top 12. Like I understand not everyone is going to want to go with Caleb and Drake May as their guys because there's a lot of projection there and a lot of hope that they take the next step. But I also would argue there's a lot of upside there with both of them. So I could have paired one of those 2 upside guys with a Dak or a Goff or a Herbert or a Purdy, someone safe. And what this draft really affirmed to me, Marcus, is if I don't get a top 5 quarterback, I'm waiting and I'm just taking 2 of these guys that I believe are all in this huge tier of second quarterbacks, which is 10 plus deep. That to me, they're all like, I know Laquan loves Bo Nix. I don't think there's a huge difference between Bo Nix and Drake May. And I got a 4-round discount on him. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks like that where, like, I'd rather have Caleb over Stroud straight up. Got him a round and a half later. I think there's not a huge difference between someone like Jordan Love and Brock Purdy, but you got a 4-round discount on them. So yeah, it just kind of made me realize that waiting is probably the way I'm going with quarterback this year.
So I will say this, because I saw your Caleb, Drake May in back-to-back rounds. In fact, with back-to-back picks. Caleb to end the 11th round, Drake May to start the 12th. That feels like a February move.
Yes, right? It does.
It feels like a thing that you do in February to say, like, hey, this is what I like. These are guys I like. That maybe you get to August and you're starting to draft a little bit for real. You're like, yeah, maybe not.
I'll pair one with like a safer guy. I also think both of those 2 guys, though, their ADPs are going to go up, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, I think the Patriots bring in receivers or whatever. And I think everyone just realizes, like, Caleb is still good and he is Ben Johnson now. And, like, that's all we really need.
Yeah. Right after you took Drake May, Shedeur Sanders goes off the board. You mentioned at the top, a lot of rookies. And I'm looking, PFF Nate, who... he took 1, 2, 3, 4.
He was leading the chart.
5, 6 rookies. He drafted 6 rookies in this one. Started with Jonty in the 2nd. He took Omarion Hampton in the 6th. Emeka Egbuka, a wide receiver from Ohio State, in the 8th. Let's see who he took. Let's see.
Caleb
Where else
Johnson?
Caleb Johnson. That was in the 9th round. Took Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas, in the 11th. And then Cam Loveland, is it? Colston Loveland, I should say, tied in from Michigan. That was in the 12th round. So he was all in. He pushed all the chips in on rookies.
I will fully admit, come next month, I will probably be more aggressive with the rookies because I'm still in the early process of getting ready for the NFL draft. I know some guys that I like, but I'm not at the point where I'm like flag planting for them or anything yet. If we run this back in a month, I probably will feel a little bit different. But I understand his thinking because rookies are the ultimate lottery ticket. Like every year at the end of the year, I go look through like the top scorers and figure out who stands out. And like, it's almost always rookies that are the ones that are like, I did not expect this person to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and I get it, right? And again, this is February too. Like you can sort of take these big swings and you can like make these declarations. I do think some of these guys, as more people start to kind of study them as we go through the combine, because, you know, the combine always gives guys a bump in certain places. I think we will start to see some of these ADPs for some of these rookies go up. I took Cam Ward in the 13th. I just didn't want to be left out. I wanted to have a rookie. You know, so I pair him with Jalen Hurts. I'm curious. I think it'll be interesting.
Do you have a preference yet between Sanders and Ward?
I think I prefer Cam Ward over Shedeur Sanders. You know, I watched Shedeur at Colorado. I watched him more last year than this year. I did catch a couple of games this year. I don't think his ceiling is quite as high as Ward's is. So
just like you, I think he has the safer floor. Like I think you kind of know what you're getting out of him. He's pro ready, but Ward's tools to me are so elite. One that I think, like you said, the upside is higher, but I also think for fantasy, he's going to run a little bit more. He's got a stronger arm, some more big play capability. When I watched Sanders, I was like, he can run, but he doesn't. It's a lot like Caleb, I feel like he doesn't want to run. If anything, he wants to use his legs to create for his arm.
Yeah, and that was certainly that first year at Colorado. That was one of my frustrations watching Shedeur, is that I felt like he probably should have run more, especially because that first year, the offensive line was so bad that he was consistently under pressure that I felt like, hey, man, every now and then you just got to take off, you know, do something to at least freeze the linebackers. If they know that you can take off, then they got to really think about it a whole lot. But that was never the case. And I felt like he held the ball too long. I think it improved a little bit last year, but I think that's an element of his game that I would like to see get used a little more.
I think people are going to see him and be like, he could be like Jaden Daniels, but I don't think he's ever going to run like that.
No, I don't. I just don't think that's his game. That's just not who he is as a quarterback. So I think if that's what you're hoping for, I think you're going to be very disappointed. All right. So you asked me about taking Hawkinson. I got to ask you about a thing I did in the kind of later rounds. I went three rounds in a row. I went Blake Corum at 10, Rico Dowdle at 11, Kamani Vidal at 12. I already had Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones. These sort of felt like, hey, man, these guys potentially could pop off. I don't know about Dowdle so much, but I do think Corum maybe gets a bigger role. I think Vidal potentially gets a bigger role, understanding that there may be guys ahead of them. But I just sort of, you know, they're not quite the lottery ticket of a rookie, but, you know, there may be a scratcher or something.
No, I think you crushed it with this portion of the draft because Corum, like you said, he's one injury away from becoming an RB1 because if Kyren goes down, all of that workload is going to Blake Corum. Vidal, we saw the flashes at times last year, but Gus Edwards is dust at this point, I think. Yeah. And as much as J.K. Dobbins was awesome, there's a long injury history there. Even last year, he missed time with injuries. So if they don't bring anyone in, he's an injury away from being a weekly RB2, I would say. And then Rico, free agent, depends where he goes. But, I mean, you got a running back who just put up 1,000 yards in round 11. Like, that's never a bad pick.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of enjoyed, you know, that little run I had of 3 straight running backs. It was, like I said, it's not quite 0 RB, but sort of 0 RB.
One of my picks that I didn't understand at all. Why did DeAndre Swift make it to the last pick in the 9th round?
I don't know. Other than I've seen some things that he could end up being kind of a cap casualty, I guess.
Okay.
I don't even know if that's the case. I might just be making that up. I'm not even sure. So like I'm trying to figure out why it is that you got him at 9-12. I don't know.
At no point in this draft was I like, I need DeAndre Swift, but I'm sitting there in the 9th round. I have 2 running backs, and I'm like, all the other guys on the board here are backup. Like they're like legitimately like Zach Charbonnet went ahead of him. A bunch of rookies went ahead of him. But like, I got him, and then in the next round, like that's when like Corum and Spears and Javonte were going. So I was like, I'm not a huge DeAndre Swift fan, but this just feels like good value. And this won't be the case come August if he's the Bears starting running back.
By the way, speaking of good values, you getting Ricky Pearsall in the 10th feels really nice.
I won't lie, I wanted to take Travis Hunter there, but I was like, Pearsall feels like just because he could be the top slot guy this year.
Yeah. Again, I mean, with Debo asking for a trade and the Niners looking as though they're going to accommodate that request. The thought process when Pearsall was drafted is that he was going to be the eventual replacement for either Brandon Ayuk or Debo Samuel, whichever one of them didn't get signed to a contract. They obviously bring Ayuk back. Now it looks like Debo is going to be heading out. It really does feel like it's opened the door for Ricky Pearsall. Now, mind you, Pearsall had that huge game late in the season. The Niners lost to the Lions, but Pearsall 8 catches for 141 yards and a touchdown. He had another really good game kind of in mid-November where he had 4 for 73 and a touchdown. So, we have seen Ricky Pearsall go out and be productive. And now with the opportunity to have more snaps, more targets.
Not be coming off of a gunshot injury.
That part too. It does feel like that's an ADP that's bound to go up. I think people are going to start to catch on and like, oh yeah.
I thought him, and I will admit, like I loved getting Jalen McMillan in round 8, but that felt like the ADP was very suppressed. This won't be the case in the summer.
It's also some of that too. Like as we're doing mocks on different platforms, and the draft list is what it is, because that has a lot to do with ADPs, I think, early on, because, sometimes you do try to scroll, sometimes you miss names, or the way things are set up, some guys are higher on the list, and so you just end up drafting them. I think as ADPs start to come into form, and as different platforms sort of change their rankings list and their draft list, I think you'll start to see some of these change. But man, Pearsall in the 10th feels great.
Like I scrolled pretty far on running back, and I did not see Bucky Irving's name, and he ended up going in the 4th round. I don't think he goes in the 4th round at all. Like I think he's a second, maybe probably 3rd round pick in my opinion next year. But that felt like one to me that was like, oh, if his name was higher on the list, he probably doesn't fall that far.
Yeah. Some other picks that caught my eye. Tight end was interesting. Tyler Warren, who I think is going to be a stud tight end out of Penn State. He goes in the 8th round, 1 pick ahead of Travis Kelce. Kelsey's going to be an interesting case because I guess first we need to know if he's actually playing football next year.
I saw they gave him until March 14th, and people were like, oh, he's waiting to see if MLB The Show is worth retiring for or not.
So yeah, Kelce goes at the 8.6. He's going to be one that I think is very much in flux, depending on what his future plans are going to be. I don't know, any other ones, maybe like the later rounds that jumped out to you, good, bad, or otherwise.
Well, one I knew in the 10th round, like once tight ends started going, I was like, I don't even need to look at who's taking Jonnu Smith. I know that's Laquan. I thought to me it was interesting to see a couple of big, like Amari Cooper in the 11th round. I know he's a free agent, but still, this is a guy who's been a top 4-round pick for years now. And then like Tank Dell, I understand injuries, but him going in round 12, kind of Marvin Mims in the 13th, like no one pulled him up after the end of year that he had. So yeah, to me, it was more that some of these veteran, and I felt like there was value on year 2 players. Like you got Ben Sinnott, who everyone loved at this time last year. Mm-hmm. You got him in the 15th round because we're fantasy analysts, fantasy people. We're like goldfish. Like you put a new shiny toy in front of us and we're like, forget about all these guys we loved last year. So I always think that year 2 players who didn't quite live up to expectation in year 1 could be a value. And this kind of showed that.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Sinnott. I did not think last year was going to be his year. Zach Ertz was still there. And granted, Ertz obviously getting older, what have you. But I just didn't think there was going to be a real opening for him there last year. This year could be a little bit different. I think we see him get on the field a little bit. One other thing I just noticed this. Pete Davidson, talking about waiting on a quarterback, and then in back-to-back rounds, 13, 14, he gets Justin Herbert and Jared Goff. I mean, to wait that long and still get those 2 quarterbacks, that's a steal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, which to me shows again like how deep that position is.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised too. Anthony Richardson went ahead of like Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff. We talked about Richardson last week that he brings all the same upside. So I think it's like a great pick. But I did not think that he would go ahead of some of those safer quarterbacks. Yeah,
interesting too, because Nate Polvote took Richardson at the end of the 12th, paired him with Kyler Murray, which I don't know. I feel like there's a ceiling on Kyler, like he's hit his ceiling, and Richardson, we need him to get up off the floor. So I would want to have one of those guys be a little more consistent and explosive, just for my taste, personally.
It is kind of crazy though, because last year those guys were going like QB 5 and 6.
Yeah. Not now. Not now. I do love Laquan planting his flag with Jalen Milroe. He has basically stated how much he loves Milroe. He takes him in the 14th round at that point. So, but yeah, that is kind of the quick overview of it. We're going to go pick by pick because that's kind of a little bit much. But we will post this on social media so you guys can take a look at how this thing turned out. You can obviously certainly leave your comments and your thoughts. Tell us who you felt like had a good draft, who did not, what have you. It's February. It's going to change a whole lot. It'll be interesting. Like in July to come back and look at this one and be like, man, what were we thinking? We should
keep a screenshot of every one that we do, and then come July, we could just look at all like 6 or whatever it will be and be like, wow, we were idiots here. I like what we did here. Stuff like I always find that stuff fun.
It told me like, remember when you got Ricky Pearsall in the 10th? Now he's going in the 7th, stuff like that. Those kind of things
by August.
Yeah, those kind of things for sure.
Terry McLaurin in end of round 3, though, I was so sad I didn't get him. I loved that pick.
Yeah, you missed. He went one pick ahead of you. You just missed him. And but then you got DJ Moore, which I don't think is a terrible. Actually paired him up. Did you mean to pair him with Caleb? Was that the plan, or did it just sort of happen?
No, that just kind of happened.
Yeah. All right. I don't hate it at all. Not at all. Wrapping up the show, and as always, appreciate you hanging out with us. Saw this, coming across the webs recently. Tyreek Hill, who we all know is very fast and who enjoys challenging other people, has challenged Olympic gold medalist, easy for me to say, Noah Lyles to a race in 2025. Now, we don't have a date. We don't have a length of the race. Apparently, Tyreek would prefer it being closer to 40 yards. Lyles, understandably, wants it to be 100 meters. That is one of his specialties. Simple question. Can Tyreek Hill beat an Olympic sprinter in a race?
No. I think he can. So I just had to Google 1 yard is almost equivalent to 1 meter. So
it's pretty close. Yeah.
So yeah, look, Tyreek is incredibly fast. I think he's too bulky though. Like he's got a lot of muscle. Noah Lyles looks cut up, but he's definitely a skinnier dude. Also, this is what Noah Lyles does every single day of his life. Like Tyreek is fast with pads on and like to cut and all of that, but just straight sprint speed. I don't know. I'm going to go with the guy who's done it and won at a world champion level before.
Well, I think this is the reason though. Tyreek understands a shorter race benefits him just because he is shorter than Lyles. He has shorter legs. I think he gets up to top speed quicker, but over the course of a longer race, when Lyles finally gets going, I think he eats up that space. I think he eats up that ground, right? And you're talking about 100 meters is about 110 yards. So it's like you start on one goal line and you go through the back of the other end zone, basically. That's is what insane. It is.
I did not realize it was that far.
Yeah, it's about 110 yards. So I think a longer race benefits Lyles. I think in the end, I think they'll probably meet in the middle somewhere. Like, I don't know, 60 meters or something like that. Yeah. 60, 70 meters, something like that is probably where they sort of split the difference.
Do you remember a couple years ago when the Pro Bowl did like a track race and Tyreek participated, but he didn't really run? Like, right. Tyreek, if we're setting this up, you need to be going 100%.
Well, I think for this, he will, right? Because this is a chance for him to, sort of claim supremacy for NFL players. Because I know that's the whole thing. It's, Noah Lyles likes to take shots at other sports. Tyreek Hill definitely wants to stand up for NFL players in a race. So this is the opportunity.
I understand Lyle's argument with like the whole "you're not a world champion" thing with other sports, but with football, it is null and void because please find another team outside of the 32 NFL teams that could beat the Eagles in a game right now. Like you can't.
You're not gonna do that. I mean, they are the world champion by default because it's our sport and no one else really plays. I mean, like no one else really plays it at a high level anywhere else in the world. It's not like basketball where, there are a lot of really good basketball players in other countries and good teams in other countries. I mean, we've seen that the gap between the USA and the other countries, at least in men's basketball and in women's, I guess too, but certainly in men's basketball, that gap has closed pretty significantly.
And in baseball, I don't know if we have the most volume America does, but I don't know if we have the best anymore. Like Ohtani is easily the best player in baseball.
Well, and the World Baseball Classic, I feel like is legitimately up for grabs every couple of years. The U.S. is competitive, but Japan is very good. Puerto Rico has its own team. They're very good. Mexico, you can start naming countries that are all really talented. The Dominican. I mean, all these other countries have legitimate shots to win in baseball. I think it's part of the reason isn't that part of the reason it was out of the Olympics for a while because we stopped winning it easily?
I really don't want to pause the season in the summer, but I'm always like, I would sign up for that because that's when players are actually ready to compete. Whereas World Baseball Classic, they're also kind of using it to get ready for the season.
It's a little bit of spring training extra is what that is. Yeah. Now, I would be down with taking a 2-week break for the Olympics. I think it'd be a great way to showcase the sport. I know that the commissioner's not really for it. I know Shohei made a case that they should do it. I think it would be cool when everybody's like warmed up and ready to go. But then again, also, if you're the Pirates and Paul Skeens blows out his arm playing in the Olympics, you're not going to be thrilled about it.
And the Dodgers pretty much are Team Japan right now. So
pretty much, that is true. Very, very true for sure. So any other players you would like to see in a race? Maybe not against like a Olympic sprinter or anything.
I think the obvious answer is Xavier Worthy after what he did in the 40 last year. Mm-hmm. I would still, to this day, like we've had Chris Johnson on this show before. I, to this day, would love to see what I think he could outrun most NFL players today, even being as far removed from the game as he is. What I really want to see is let's have some big guys run, right? Like 100 meter for people who weigh over like 350 or something like that. I think that's a thing that certainly non-football fans, I don't think understand is that, these guys are not, they're not as fast as Xavier Worthy. These guys are really fast. I mean, they are shockingly fast for their size. The fact that even these linemen are running 40 yards in under 6 seconds. Like, I don't know that a lot of people comprehend really how fast that is at that size. So I'd be down for that. I think the combine has broken people's brains because, like, you'll see a running back run like a 4.6 and it's like, oh, well, career's over for him. And like, the difference between 4.6 and 4.4 is like a microscopic second. Like it's these guys are all extremely fast and athletic and good at what they do. And offensive linemen could run 40 yards faster than most humans can. Like that just shows you how good of an athlete they are.
Yeah, 100%. So I'd be down for that. I also want to just see like, you know, I don't know, Matthew Stafford versus Patrick Mahomes or something like that.
Old quarterback like Joe Flacco versus Matt Stafford.
Yeah, like that's what because for years I always wanted like a Peyton Manning, Tom Brady foot race. Like that's what I wanted for a long time. Maybe we could still make that happen. Like, I don't know, but you know, I want something like that. Yeah. Yeah, get the Manning brothers. Let the Manning brothers race each other. I'd be down for that.
If Laquan was here right now, he'd probably be saying like, I could beat Tyreek and Noah Lyles in the 100-meter.
I mean, what animal was he? Oh, he's gonna fight a kangaroo. Like he wants to fight a kangaroo. Like I wouldn't put a whole lot of LQ, we love you, man, but you're not fighting a kangaroo. You're not beating Tyreek Hill in a race.
I'm gonna ask him for next show. I have to remember this. I'm gonna ask him in our text chain what he thinks he can run the 40 in, just to see what number he puts out there.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that too. So, yeah. So stick around for Thursday's show. We can get more tales of Laquan Jones' greatness. That'd be amazing. In the meantime, that'll do it for this edition of the NFL Fantasy Football Show. Stay happy, safe, and healthy. Do good and live well. Enjoy the days, everybody. We will talk to you again on Thursday.